Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books. Today we're going to be talking about Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the audiobook and how freaking fantastic it is. Sleeping Giants is an amazing sort of sci-fi, almost dystopian, but I don't think it's classified as dystopian. I'm not actually sure. Novel about gigantic robots and basically the US military slash not the military being very sneaky. It's a hard book to describe and I've heard whisperings about it and how good it was before I decided to read it, and well, the reason I decided to read it was my best friend in New Zealand told me that I needed to read it because it was really good, and oh my god, did it live up to my expectations or what? I just cannot get over the audiobook performance. It was phenomenal and it is the way to read this series, I can guarantee you that. So Sleeping Giants is part of a trilogy and on Goodreads it has an average rating of 3.84 stars out of 5, which is pretty good but not super amazing, and I think it deserves to be a whole lot higher than what it is. That is of a total of 65,000 ratings or thereabouts of an average, so that's not bad, but again, I'm surprised that more people aren't loving it, and I'm beginning to wonder whether the audiobook really just adds that extra kapow to the whole story. So it was first released in April of 2016, so it's been out for a few years now, and I think it has just not reached the level of hype that it should have done. For starters, what an incredible cover, that is really impressive. But for seconds, it is just such a unique story. This whole thing follows this one girl who, when she's really little, she falls into this hole. It's this perfectly rectangular hole, and she lands on a gigantic metal hand, nothing else, just the hand of this giant supposed robot. It doesn't make any sense how little it weighs compared to what it's made out of, and this basically becomes an interest for her for the rest of her life. So we then time skip to an interview with this mysterious man. We never know his name, we never really know where he's come from, and we don't really know what his motivations are. All we do know is that he is running this operation. He seems to know an awful lot about it, but he's not part of the government or the army or anything like that. He has nothing to do with it, but he is American. And he recruits in these people, starting with this girl, to try and recover the remaining body parts of this giant. They realize that there must be more to this body out there, and they don't know where it's going to be, but they have all sorts of theories and find all sorts of different ways to try and recover the parts, expose them, and bring them back to a base where they can secretly construct this robot with the idea of creating a planetary defense that the USA would house and hold and control. Naturally, this idea springs all sorts of problems because why should the US have it, and what about Russia and China and all the other forces that come into play when they slowly discover what's happening. And the whole thing is basically done through a series of interviews. There's very little narrative, it is all dialogue, it is all about this guy interviewing and talking to other people as the process continues on, and we sort of build up this whole gradual story of what on earth is going on, what is the point of this robot, how does everyone come into play, why are these characters important, and all sorts of things like that. So it's this really complicated story where most of it, for most of the book, is shrouded in mystery, and even at the end of it we end up with quite the cliffhanger, which was very unexpected, and I don't really know how it fits into the story, and I'm really excited to see where the book is going to go from there. Now, the whole audiobook is done with a cast of voice narrators, voice actors, so it is not just one person doing it, so we get accents, we get different voices, and the intonation and the way that the lines are delivered are just, it's done so well. I'm so happy that I decided to read this book through an audiobook because of the way that things are said and the way emotions are expressed in the audiobook. I know for a fact I would never have read it that way myself, so it is this extra element of performance that really delivers the story in the way that I feel the author meant it to be told. Now, I have no idea if Neuvel had anything to do with the audiobook production himself, but I am assuming so because it's just really perfect. It's really perfectly done. Even the main man who is interviewing everyone and talking to everyone and conducting the project is such a unique identity that I feel like there was a lengthy discussion that must have taken place at some point to decide how this character would be performed throughout the whole book and how we as the reader would feel towards him, because it's quite funny really, because there's so much dry humour throughout the whole book, whether it's sort of intentional or not, but you don't trust him, but you do, and it's just this weird lack of emotion that comes from him throughout the whole book that makes him interesting but unrelatable, because you can't really connect to him. Nobody can, but you, like the characters in the book, by the end of the story, feel like he's your best friend, even though you know that that is definitely not the case. It's just such a fascinating story that really plays with your mind, but is also really entertaining because of the way the interviews are conducted, when people are getting emotional, angry, or reactive to things that this guy is saying, and he is just deadpanning them with every answer and not getting they're not getting a rise out of him. It makes it really entertaining to read. So I'm really excited to carry on with the the next book and see where the story takes us, because at this point I'm just not sure. I have heard good things about the series going forwards, and I've also heard some people have been a bit about how the series ended, so I'm not sure what to expect. I think I don't necessarily have high expectations about this or low expectations, and I feel like I'm also getting this exclusive experience by doing it via the audiobook. So I cannot recommend that you listen to this story and have somebody tell you the way it should be told rather than you reading it. I can almost imagine if you were reading it for yourself, you might struggle to connect with the characters in the way that you're supposed to, because you just can't hear it. You can't hear the way that they're saying these things, and it's so important. So I don't think I actually have a whole lot more to say on this than that, other than this just being a phenomenal read. It is so different. It is so intriguing, and it's really difficult to stop reading it because there's just so much going on, and there's so much mystery surrounding the whole plot line, and you just can't help but continue going back for more because you want to know how it all fits together and what the point is. And I don't know who's going to have the final say over how things go down. It's absolutely fascinating, so I can't recommend this book enough. I will leave it there. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below if you've read this and what you thought of it, and if you're planning on continuing the series. But other than that, I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.